Okay.
Okay, I'm Natalie and this is Macy.
Hello.
Hey, I'm Ryan. It's nice to meet you guys.
It's nice to meet you too. I am excited about this. So I thought you were someone else. I watched the videos of um what I don't know his name, but I saw you in the video as well. It was about this case, the Tims.
Yeah. What video?
I'll send it to you right now, but I thought you were him and I didn't know who you were. So I'm glad to put a face with the name now.
Okay. Yeah. I'm interested to see who I was on a video with.
Yeah, I can't remember what I sent it to Macy. I'll send it to you right now.
Oh yeah, no problem. Because I've done multiple interviews, not only for this case, but for cases across the state. So
Yeah. Okay, so we'll just get started. I figured you could tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and you are the power, and then
sure,
also about the Tims, and then any other examples of the kind of families you're working with,
sure.
and
Uh,
then where we can get legislation and information about you and your organization and ways to help.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you probably confused me with Spike Cohen.
Yes.
He's our founder. So you probably saw a video with Spike, and I may
Okay.
have been in.
Okay, yeah, that is exactly who it was. I thought he was you, but you're in that video too, I think.
Probably. It's possible.
Yeah, in the background, there's talking to someone, talking to one of the Tims.
It's absolutely possible.
So he's actually going to go eat dinner tonight with them.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So the
That's
families that
cool.
we're helping here in Georgia, we're all going to go have dinner tonight. So
That's going to be
Awesome.
awesome. We'll tell them we said hi and that this episode will be out on Monday.
Monday. Okay, absolutely. That was one of the questions they wanted me to ask.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I talked to Carrie a little bit. She can't say much, but that's why you're here.
Yeah, yeah. So you want me to tell a little bit about myself and then we'll start from there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. My name is Ryan Ralston. I am the Southeast Regional Organizer for You Are the Power. So You Are the Power is a nonprofit. We're a membership-based, member-driven nonprofit. We operate in all 50 states. We reached really we have a global outreach. We reached, at least on social media, upwards of 50 million people. We're founded by Spike Cohen. Spike's our founder, and I'm fortunate enough that he allows me to um, lead the Southeast. And so I manage 10 states for You Are the Power. And so I happen to live here in Georgia. I make my living Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I work for a nonprofit as well. We're the only nonprofit in the state of Georgia that works to correct and prevent wrongful convictions. We also educate the public about the problems of wrongful convictions while helping exonerees rebuild their lives. And so the cases that we accept are both DNA and non-DNA based. And so I have a background in investigative work. I've been involved in Georgia's criminal legal system for 22 years now.
Wow.
And so this is what I do for a living. And as a matter of fact, when Spike, he and I have known each other, we have a mutual friend, and really how I got intimately involved with You Are the Power. There's an unsolved murder in Mississippi, and a family had reached out to Spike for assistance, and Spike had reached out to me, and we were kind of talking some strategy and got that squared away. And then one night he's like, "Hey, do you think what would you think about coming on board and leading this unsolved murder investigation in Mississippi?" And I said, I said, "I'm not telling you no, Spike, but I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably going to be one of the most difficult undertakings your organization has ever tried to take on." I said, "Not only is your team scattered across the country," I said, "we have nobody in Mississippi that we're working directly with." And I said, "There's allegations of official police misconduct as well. So this is really going to complicate it." And Spike said, "Okay, I understand all that, but we're still going to do it." So we've been
Sounds
down
like
to Miss.
us.
Yeah, yeah. That's like he was like, and I love him for it. Like he's just absolute. Let's do it. There's an injustice. I want to right the wrong. And so we've made 4 trips in the past year to Mississippi. I'll probably make one more trip here pretty soon. And we've been able to complete an entire timeline of the case, something that local law enforcement hasn't been able to do. And we're about that close from completing the timeline. There's about 3 hours left that are unaccounted for. And it's just the 3 hours that we believe the victim in this case was either kidnapped or got into a truck with ultimately the people that led to his demise. And so, go back out there one more time and see if we can get it wrapped up. And then our goal is to present our findings of fact to the family sometime in the very near future. And so that's really how I became involved with You Are the Power. I just happen to live here in Metro Atlanta. And so I've been doing this work. And really and truly, what got us involved with the Tim's case and all the cases that we're helping throughout the state of Georgia. If you guys have seen any of our social media posts or been to our website and some of the causes that we're championing here in Georgia, it started with a family in Forsyth County, which is just north of Atlanta. It's the Hernandez family, and they were accused of abusing their baby under the same circumstances in which Birdy and Carrie are under, Birdy and Carrie Timms. And this speaks volumes for the families. Matt and Tucky Hernandez, and Tucky and Matt have been going through the same challenges that Birdy and Carrie have. But Tucky, while we were working with her, had told us, like, hey, there's a family over in Gordon County suffering the same injustice that we are. Would you guys be interested in reaching out to them? And so made a phone call or sent an email to, I believe, Carrie, and we scheduled a Zoom call, and we had a conversation. And just right off the bat, you could tell that the things that they were being accused of, they're just absolutely innocent of. Like, I had no doubt in my mind. And I asked Birdy and Carrie, I said, can you do me a favor? Any of the documentation that you have from law enforcement, the medical reports, the caseworkers reports filed from Defax, because in Georgia, our child protective services are called Defax, the Division of Family and Children's Services. I said, could you just email me all that? Because I want to take a look at it. And they sent me thousands upon thousands of pages of documentation. And I spent a couple of weeks going over it, and reported my findings over to our national volunteer director, You Are the Power's national volunteer director, Jason Lyon. And I said, Jason, we need to help this family. I said, they're factually innocent. I said, their baby has a medical condition. They were misdiagnosed at a hospital in Atlanta. Law enforcement's now involved. Law enforcement's trying to prosecute him, send him to prison. I said, we need to help this family. And so Jason looked over the documentation, and he drew the same conclusion. And one of the most gratifying phone calls that we get to make here at You Are the Power is when we get to call a mom or a dad and say, your cause is now our cause. Your case is now our case. And most importantly, your babies are now our babies. We're going to do everything in our power to reunite your family, and we're going to be with you from here on out. You're never going to be alone in this fight. And we approach these cases very holistically. And what I mean by that is, there's different elements to all these cases that we're working with, right? So specifically with the Birdy and Carrie Timms case, is they had a medically fragile baby who they were trying to seek answers about, why their baby was presenting with the symptoms that they did as early as six weeks old. And these symptoms present or could present as possible child abuse. Like they can. Mm-hmm. However, in this case, there's no facts, there's no indication that Birdy or Carrie had ever abused their son. So at 6 weeks old, he was experiencing some discoloration, and what you might commonly just look at and say, well, the baby is bruising. And so they ended up taking their son, Jameson, to a pediatrician over the course of several weeks. And the pediatrician, was just basically like, the bruises will show, they'll disappear. It could be anything. The baby seems overall healthy. Again, Jameson presented with more bruising, had some swelling or discoloration in the leg. So they ended up at Erlanger Baroness Hospital in Chattanooga. And a doctor there did an exam of Jameson. They ran some blood work, ran some tests. I believe Jameson ended up staying at Erlanger for about 3 days. And they said everything was normal, and sent the baby home. Birdy and Carrie, unfortunately, ended up at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. We call that CHOA here in Georgia, where they encountered a child abuse pediatrician, Dr. Verena Brown. Dr. Brown, who has a questionable background, ended up diagnosing, after she evaluated Jameson, ended up diagnosing him as having been abused. They did x-rays of Jameson and then noticed that Jameson had, or determined that Jameson had, rib fractures in various stages of healing, which in and of itself would cause an alarm for any pediatrician, right? But the difference in what most pediatricians and doctors do, and these child abuse pediatricians, which are emblematic of or problematic here in Georgia, is that once they determine or once they believe that their opinion is right, that a child has been abused, they do no additional testing. That just basically shuts down their investigation. They do no additional testing. And so that is exactly what happened with Brady and Carrie's son. As a matter of fact, as the doctor made the diagnosis of potential child abuse or non-accidental trauma is what they call it, they notified what's called a rapid response team with Defax. It's a caseworker, it's a social worker that came out, and they actually seized Jameson from Carrie. Carrie was in the hospital. They seized baby Jameson, and Brady and Carrie were escorted out of the hospital by security. And we're told that their baby is now in state's custody and that they would no longer have access to their baby or any of the medical records. What Brady and Carrie did ultimately to keep Jameson out of Georgia's foster care system, and we can talk about that a little bit later if you'd like, because the foster care system in Georgia is absolutely broken. But what Brady and Carrie ended up doing to prevent their son from being put in the foster care system was they signed over parental rights to Brady's mom and dad. And so when they did that, that effectively ended the Defax involvement in their case. While they were going through that process, Brady and Carrie began researching some of the symptoms that their son was presenting. And everything that they read online pointed to a genetic disorder, particularly what's called EDS or Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. They did some more research and determined that there was a doctor in Boston by the name of Michael Hollick. Dr. Hollick's been practicing medicine for about as long as I've been alive. I'm almost 50 years old. And he is an expert at Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and other genetic disorders. Brady and Carrie petitioned the court to have Jameson or to take Jameson out of state to be seen by Dr. Hollick, which they did. The judge signed an order for them to take the baby out of state. Now, of course, because at that time Jameson was in state's custody, two caseworkers or two Defax workers had to accompany Jameson to the hospital in Boston. So Brady, had Jameson up there. Carrie had Jameson up there, and Carrie was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome as well as Jameson. This diagnosis was made in front of the two Defax workers, thinking that this was going to end their nightmare and they were going to get their baby back. They flew back to Georgia, went back to court, and Defax said, well, yeah, we acknowledge the fact that Jameson has a genetic disorder, but that does not mean that you did not abuse your son. And Defax continued to press for them to terminate parental rights. And ultimately, that's why Brady and Carrie signed over temporary guardianship, legal guardianship to Brady's parents. Of course, local law enforcement gets involved in the case, right? Because you have allegations of abuse. In Georgia, especially the more rural law enforcement agencies, they're simply not equipped to investigate a case as complex as this. There's other issues. There's genetic issues, there's blood issues, there's bone issues, there's vitamin D deficiency at play here. And so these officers, these investigators, to no fault of their own, simply are not equipped to handle this type of investigation. And so rather than conducting a thorough investigation and doing their due diligence, law enforcement here in Georgia, in Gordon County, where Brady and Carrie live, simply relied on the medical opinion of Dr. Brown. The law enforcement officer who worked for the Calhoun Police Department swore out arrest warrants, felony arrest warrants for Brady and Carrie. They were arrested and charged with first-degree cruelty to children. So it's a serious felony in Georgia. Brady and Carrie have sat, or at the time, they sat in limbo for over or almost 3 years. Okay. They were arrested but never indicted. When we got involved and You Are the Power started working with Birdy and Carrie, we started an email campaign and immediately tried to draw public awareness about what's going on in these cases. We began emailing the chief of police there at the Calhoun Police Department. We emailed the district attorney's office. And we started email state officials with Defax. The state officials at Defax wouldn't respond to us. The chief of police of the Calhoun Police Department was actually he was receptive to what we were trying to say, but he basically washed his hands of it and said, I'm sorry, the arrest has been made. It's up to the district attorney's office whether or not they're going to pursue these criminal charges. So we started emailing and making phone calls to the district attorney, and lo and behold, almost 3 years after they were arrested and not indicted, the district attorney decided to indict Birdy and Carrie. But not only did he indict Birdy and Carrie, he upped the charges. He added aggravated battery to the already serious felony offense of cruelty to children in the first degree. So now Birdy and Carrie have been arrested, indicted, and they are facing decades in prison for a crime that never even occurred. Birdy and Carrie are factually innocent, and they've been fighting for their lives. And you and I, we all know that, we all enjoy that we are innocent until proven guilty. But it seems to me in this case that Birdy and Carrie were convicted. They were thought guilty, and they're now having to prove themselves innocent. So after 3 years, Birdy and Carrie have spent a good portion of their life savings in almost $100,000 to defend themselves. During the course of those 3 years, they have had limited contact with their son. As a matter of fact, I was in their house, it was 2 weekends ago, they were having a yard sale to help raise money for their criminal defense. And I walked into their house, and this, as a father, this absolutely broke my heart. Jameson was seized by Defax shortly before Christmas when he was just 3 months old. Now, Jameson's 3 years old now. Birdy and Carrie have not taken anything out of Jameson's room since then. His crib is still set up. His Christmas presents from 3 years ago are still in his room. Their life has been put on hold as a result of a misdiagnosis by a child abuse pediatrician at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. To complicate this already messy situation, Birdy has a son from a previous relationship. And because of their strict bond conditions, Birdy cannot even see his son from the previous relationship without there being someone present to participate in the visitation. So Birdy's son from the previous relationship, and then Jameson, the son that he has with Carrie, the two brothers have not been able to live in the same home together in 3 years. This is an absolute nightmare. It's a fractured family situation here. If, and I say if, the child abuse pediatrician, Dr. Verena Brown, if she would have done her due diligence and looked at the totality of the medical records, right? Because Carrie had complications during her pregnancy. Following birth, Jameson was medically fragile. Birdy and Carrie took Jameson to multiple doctor's visits trying to figure out what was going on with their son. These were loving, concerned parents. Defax did not do their due diligence. They didn't properly investigate this. They simply relied on the opinion of Dr. Brown. Law enforcement followed suit. They simply relied on the opinion of Dr. Brown and didn't complete their thorough investigation. And so here we are, 3 years, almost 3 years after Jameson was seen by Dr. Brown at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, and the family's still in limbo. They're not getting answers from the district attorney's office. They're not getting answers from, Defax, or not getting answers from anyone who is in a position of authority to help this family. We've started an email campaign trying to reach Governor Brian Kemp here in Georgia. Over the past 6 months, we've probably sent 500 emails to Governor Kemp. We have friends of the organization and members of You Are the Power who phone Governor Kemp's office daily, requesting a meeting with him because we want him to fully understand what's going on. Because in Georgia, the head of Defax falls underneath the umbrella of the Department of Human Services, and that's an appointed position. Her name is Candace Brochie. She's an appointed position. She's an attorney who worked with Governor Kemp when Governor Kemp was Georgia's Secretary of State. She worked for Governor Kemp in his elections division. So Candace has zero experience on cases like this, zero experience managing personnel in cases like this. And we argue, and our argument is that Defax is broken. U.S. Senator John Ossoff did an investigation of Defax here in Georgia and compiled a 64-page report detailing just how broken Defax is. One of the statistics that I like to share, and this is readily available, it's open to the public. This is not anything that we have made up. I mean, this comes from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. During the COVID pandemic, there were almost 2,000 children that were in state's care in Georgia that have gone missing. Let that number sink in for a second. 2,000 children charged under the responsibility of Georgia's Defax have gone missing, of which almost 500 were believed to have been trafficked for sexual purposes. And this is the same organization that has taken Birdy and Carrie's life and upended it. We cannot get the governor to respond to us. He will not answer our phone calls. He will not answer our emails. He will not respond to the fact that his own state agency has lost 2,000 children. Okay? These are children, innocent boys, innocent girls that have gone missing, of which a good portion of that, a third of those children, are presumed to have been sexually trafficked. Okay. And so we're just calling for, at this point, we're calling for Governor Kemp to meet with us, to sit down and have a conversation, and let's discuss these issues. Factually innocent families in Georgia are being fractured because multiple agencies are not doing their due diligence and thoroughly investigating these claims of medically fragile children. They're automatically saying abuse, and they're doing nothing else to change their minds. And this is why we got involved. This is why You Are Our Power is involved. And this is why we're so passionate about what we're doing. I'm from the South. You guys might be from the South. And so down here, at least in Georgia, one of the highest compliments that can be paid to someone is you say, hey, they're good people, right? Mm-hmm. So if someone were to ask me, what do you think about Birdy and Carrie? My response is, man, they're good people. And they are. They do not deserve this. Their babies do not deserve this. Their family doesn't deserve this. Their communities don't deserve this. It was several months ago, we helped, we held a fundraiser for Birdy and Carrie in their hometown. And it was in a smaller event center. And it was packed out. I mean, their church, their pastor, their church family, immediate family, friends. We had people, strangers, complete strangers, who drove from 2 hours away to support Birdy and Carrie. I mean, we ended up raising, I want to say, and don't hold me to the number, but it was about $3,500 for them. Because, Birdy and Carrie they have to hire 2 attorneys because they're both indicted. And so those attorneys are quite expensive. And so when I say they're good people, Birdy works 2, sometimes 3 jobs in order to make ends meet and to help pay their legal bills. Carrie works full time. It's very rare that they get any time to themselves because they're so focused on reuniting their family, and they're so focused to righting this wrong. And to their credit, and bless them for doing it, they are voices for other families in Georgia as well. They're champions for raising awareness to this cause for these medically fragile children. Right now, You Are the Powers, we're sponsoring 5 families in Georgia, all under the same conditions. They all have medically fragile children. And these cases are scattered throughout the state. they're just not isolated to the metro Atlanta area. They're North Georgia, South Georgia, near the Florida-Georgia line. They're in Southeast Georgia, Southwest Georgia. But the common denominator for these cases is they're all medically fragile children. They've all been seen by a child abuse pediatrician, and the child abuse pediatrician says that these children have been abused when no abuse actually occurs. All these families are facing felony criminal charges. Unfortunately, one of the families that we were sponsoring, the Alexander family, they were in Pike County, Georgia, which is kind of central Georgia. They went to trial about 3 weeks ago and they were found guilty. The judge sentenced them to 15 years with the first 18 months in confinement. This family, they're young. I've got children that are older than they are. This was a young couple. They were about 23, 24 years old. I had a medically fragile child. Again, genetic disorder, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, was seen by a child abuse pediatrician. Child abuse pediatrician says it was abuse. Defax becomes involved. Local law enforcement becomes involved. They are arrested. They are indicted. And they were found guilty. During the course of this whole situation with the Alexander family, which was 3 years in the making, 3 years, they had a baby. They had a second son. And the state took the second son away because of restrictive bond conditions, and they couldn't be with their two children. So again, in order to keep the children out of foster care, Tyler and Taylor and Alexander, the parents, actually had Terrelyn's mom and dad adopt their two boys to keep them out of the state's foster care system. Unfortunately, Tyler and Taylor they're in prison right now. But they are getting some credit for time served. And so if everything goes according to plan, they should be home by Christmas. However, they're still going to be under probation for the next 14 years with limited access to their boys. And so again, we're just trying to raise awareness about the things that are going on here in Georgia. And we were hopeful that Governor Kemp would listen to us, would hear our cries, our pleas for help. But so far, they've fallen on deaf ears.
Wow. My God. I'm kind of sick.
Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Well, you go ahead.
And I am
catch
very
my
mad.
breath.
I'm very, very mad.
Yeah.
I'm like
Yeah.
sweating.
Oh, I'm so angry right now.
This is
Yeah.
insanity. I had no idea. The pandemic thing about the
No.
2000,
Yeah.
no idea.
Those numbers were buried by Georgia Defax, right?
Oh my gosh. This is so bad.
This is so bad.
But it's true. And
Yes.
one of the things that, and I'm open to questions, but one of the things that we have determined through independent investigation here at You Are the Power is that there are financial incentives at play for the state to take these children, terminate parental rights, and put them up for adoption. If you or your audience members are not familiar with what's called Title IV funds, those are federal funds. So what Defax typically does is once a child is deemed to be dependent, right? A judge says a child is dependent upon the state. What Defax typically does is they start running these children and these parents through a battery of tests, psychological tests. They start putting children on psychotropic medications. They'll send children and parents to a very specific set or group of doctors who typically, I say typically, almost never side against Defax. They exaggerate medical conditions and mental health concerns of children and parents. And then they report back to the juvenile court judge that these babies and these children need to be adopted out. And so that kicks in federal funding. As a matter of fact, last year in Georgia, the state received over $150 million in federal funding through these programs. $150 million. Now think about this for a second. There's about 12 to 14,000 children in Georgia's foster care system right now. And Georgia reaped the benefit of $150 million. The reunification rate, and I like to talk statistics because they're black and white, they can't be argued. The national reunification rate for a family who has interaction with Child Protective Services is around 50%, which you would expect that to be. Because, you want to investigate the claims of abuse, and then sometimes the abuse is substantiated, other times it is not. So you would expect that number around 50%. In Georgia, the reunification rate hovers around 33%, 33, which means that, the vast majority of the time, juvenile court judges side with Defax, they terminate parental rights, and they put children up for adoption. In Camden County, Georgia, we're helping 2 families there right now. Camden County is on the Florida-Georgia line. The reunification rate in Camden County is 10%. That means 90% of the time when Defax is involved in a family in Camden County, the juvenile court judge orders that the child's parents terminates their parental rights and puts the children up for adoption. One of the things that is significant about Camden County, Georgia, is recently they had 2 of their investigators arrested, two Defax investigators arrested, one for aggravated sodomy. This worker was going to homes where primarily there were single mothers, and he was asking for sexual favors in order for them to get their children back.
Oh my God.
The other investigator was arrested for DUI, and this is the investigator who transports kids around from visitation. There are allegations that a caseworker who, from what we were told, resigned this Friday, today is his last day, as a matter of fact, for inappropriate contact and relationship with children. He had he had pornography on his laptop, and he gave that laptop to a child to use. Not only that, but there's allegations that he was inappropriately kissing children on the mouth, having young girls sit in his lap, checking children out of school and taking them to get ice cream. And this is the same organization that is charged to take care of the most vulnerable children in the state of Georgia.
It's also the same, I don't even want to call them anything that, resembles respect at this point,
Yeah.
but this is also the same group that 2,000 children went missing.
Yes.
3-4 years. This
Yes.
is insane.
And 500 are believed to be
Yeah.
have been
Trafficked.
sexually trafficked.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
This
And-
is insane.
God.
And these numbers are
Yeah.
readily available to the public. The federal government's investigated Defax here in Georgia. The National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children come up with these numbers. We're intimately involved with the families and the defense team in Camden County. So there have been 2 or 3 press conferences down there where this information was put out to the general public about what's going on in Camden County, specifically with the Defax office. There have been numerous children in Metro Atlanta who have been murdered by family who were returned by Defax to a broken home. They were returned to, a parent who was violent, and that child ultimately ended up murdered. There have been several children that Defax has returned to that environment here in Metro Atlanta. And again, this is not anything that's not readily available to the public. However, we have our own governor turning a blind eye to these facts.
Wow.
That is crazy. So they're just as a whole getting almost everything backwards.
Yes.
Yes, they absolutely are.
They're doing the opposite of what is right and just
Yeah.
by the children.
Yes.
By the children.
Yeah. So if you think about it for a second, Macy, Defax is a necessary evil, right? Child Protective Services is a necessary evil. And I say evil only because they're doing evil things in Georgia, but Child Protective Services, there is a need for it.
Yep.
The sad reality is mothers and fathers do abuse their babies. And that is when Defax should step in and provide services for that family.
Right.
However, what's happening in Georgia is they are seizing medically fragile children. children who do not to be put in the state's foster care system. They're taking those children and adopting them out. However, when there are children who are genuinely being abused by their mom and dad, Defax is returning them to their homes where they are being murdered by their family.
There's the system that is set up for justice of the child is completely being abused in every aspect of the way.
Yes.
And the Title IV funds, I have a little bit of knowledge about that and have heard of it and things like that, but this is all about money.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about
Every
money.
bit of this is about money,
Mhm.
and at the cost of kids,
Children.
at their lives.
Mhm.
Like, this is effed
Beyond.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, this
No, I agree. I'll
I
tell
am
you,
angry.
I can send you guys emails, and I'll be glad to do it. I've got
Yes.
copies of emails from Defax workers where they are actually, I'll pull them up right now and read one to you. It literally, I've got 40 emails that were sent to us. And it's literally saying, can you assist? And they traffic these children out by sex and by race and by age. But you can see, can you assist sending out a blast? I got an 18-year-old. They're living in a hotel, but we want them to get out of a hotel. If you want to take the child tonight, we'll pay you an extra per diem for doing it. Like, I've got almost 40 emails full of this from Defax workers here in Georgia that are literally, they don't know what to do with these children when they see them. They're living in hotels. They're living in Defax offices. There was a child in Camden County who was taken out of his parents' home, was put in a hotel, lived in a hotel for about half a year, didn't go to school, spent every day playing video games for 6 months, and is now a year and a half to 2 years behind in his education as a result.
Oh my gosh.
Like, Defax just doesn't, they need help. They don't know what they're doing. It is an absolutely broken system from the top down.
Yep.
And we're just trying to draw awareness to it.
Yeah. No, for sure. That it's crazy that all of these things are like public, like you can
You gotta
literally
look it
find
up.
it. And I
Well,
had no idea.
I know, and I'm glad that you are here to tell us all this, because now
Yes.
thousands of listeners are going to hear this and look into it, because I know we're going to be researching it for the next
Oh my
few
God, I'm gonna
hours.
be sharing all the things on social media.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll send you guys whatever you want.
Please.
I've got,
Oh my God, I am just floored
I will
right
send you
now.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
The data and the statistics that I'm talking about, I send you everything. Like, I keep electronic case files and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we are running out of time, because I don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you got to get on the road to meet the Tims.
yeah,
I was
But
gonna say too, though, like the recording may stop, like from a standpoint of the video,
right.
but I think if we've got like a minute and 10 seconds left, if there's something you want to share where like the video, because it will be on like YouTube,
sure.
we can then ask our questions and we will still have the audio to include it in the episode.
Okay.
But if just video wise, if there's anything you want to use the last minute to like say.
Sure. And I'll probably repeat this several times, but for anybody who's interested in our work, we ask that you please go to youarethepower.net/Georgia, GA. And you can see a case synopsis of everything that we're doing in our work here in Georgia. As of right now, we'll be adding another family to the case, to that particular landing page on the website within the next week. But it's You Are the Power, all one word, youarethepower.net/GA. And it tells you how to get involved. We have email templates you can send to the governor. We have email templates that you can send to these Defax caseworkers. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to share my email address, my phone number with your listeners. I'll be glad to answer any questions that they may have as well.